afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. The racial awakening many of us are experiencing now has forced us to think about some tough questions. Do I have any friends who do not look like me? Do I want an authentic relationship with someone of another race? Am I sincere in my desire or just going with the tide? What do I say about race? How do I talk about it with my white or black friends? And will any of this really matter? Up next on Another View, two professional women who've decided to tackle the tough questions together, one black and one white, and what they've discovered may give you hope. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective. This is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Before we get started with our conversation today, and I'm telling you it's going to be a great conversation, I do want to share some information for those of you who may be struggling with your mortgage or with your rent. Don't lose your housing. There is help available. So I'm going to give you a website and a phone number to go to. Resources757.org. We'll have all the information that you need, and you can start your application for assistance there. Or you can call the Housing Crisis Hotline at 757-587-4202 and talk with an intake specialist. So either go to resources757.org or call the crisis hotline at 757-587-4202. And they also encourage you that if you have a court date, attend the hearing and request time to obtain financial assistance. So there is help out there. Don't lose your home. I know it's a scary time for a lot of people, but take advantage of the opportunities that are available to you. Resources757.org or the Housing Crisis Hotline, 757-587-4202. So it started as a professional association, one the creator of a nonprofit, the other a board member. But then our country was rocked by racial unrest, and now all of us, including our guest today, have to reckon with our personal feelings about race and racism and how those feelings manifest themselves in our friendships. The two women you are about to meet are on a journey of friendship and understanding, so much so that they've even started a podcast called The Vine Experience. Please welcome to Another View, Dr. Angela Reddix, founder and CEO of ARDX. Angela, how are you?
I am great. Thank you for having us, Barbara.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you all today. And Susan Pilato, founder and principal of PC&A Business Environment. How you doing, Susan?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you for joining me. So I want to start. I'm going to give each of you ladies a chance to give me your elevator speech about your companies first before we talk about the nonprofit that brought you two together. So, Angela, I'll start with you.
Oh, great. I'm the founder and CEO of ARDX. We are a healthcare management and technology firm, primarily working with the federal government in the health and human services space. And so we work on implementing important legislation that really affects all of our healthcare policies and practices, and then ensuring that the systems are in place to be able to collect data and claims information. We're located all over the United States, but our headquarters is in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay. And Susan, your elevator speech for PC&A Business Environment.
Yes, I am owner and our co-owner and founder of PC&A Business Environments, and we are a commercial interior design company that specializes as a furniture dealership, providing furniture for our corporations locally, also in Richmond and Indianapolis. And pleased to be a part of the solution to environments as well as part of the violence experience.
So the thing that brought you all together was not necessarily your professional experience as entrepreneurs, but it was more about your nonprofit work. So talk to me about how the two of you connected. Angela, you want to start?
Sure. So Envision, Lead, Grow, ELG, we are affectionately known as. This was a project taken on initially, not even thinking about a nonprofit, but through my studies as a PhD student. So my dissertation topic was around transforming communities of poverty into communities of prosperity through the promise of middle school girls.
Wow.
That absolutely is my personal story. And as I have been able to become an employer, which is something I'm very proud of, and to impact something as important as healthcare, I wanted to see how I could replicate that model using a theory called expert performance, and using the elements of deliberate practice. And so that first year, it was collecting data for my dissertation. One of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life was to work on the PhD and then have to propose my dissertation and then defend my dissertation. So after I graduated, walked across the stage, I decided that this really was my destiny. This was like my fourth child. And so ELG became a 501c3. We pulled together a board, and we are 4 years into the organization, and we have, in fact, transformed the mindsets of 1,000 little girls in 48 states in just approaching our fourth year.
Wow.
So I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of the people that I've been able to connect with heart to heart because of the nature of the work that we're doing. And one of those individuals was Susan Pilato, who our first year as an organization, she was one of our stellar mentors for the girls. And I remember that Susan was introduced to us through Town Bank. From the beginning, Town Bank has been behind ELG. And I remember Dawn sent out an email, I believe, to those who are women and connected with Town Bank, and Susan answered the call. So she became a mentor. And I remember my first conversation with Susan. I told her we had girls in Hampton, in Newport News and Hampton, that we needed coverage for. She was in Norfolk. And so I asked her would she make the commitment. And back then, the requirement was meeting with the girls face-to-face once a week.
Wow.
And Susan did that. She traveled to the peninsula, which, in this area is like you don't go across the bridge, but through the tunnel. But she did that every week and had such a phenomenal impact on the girls. And it got to a point where she had to say, Angela, for the next year, I'm not sure that I'll be able to do this because some things have shifted in her life. But I believe that when someone is connected, you find a seat on the bus for them. You don't kick them off the bus. And so we had conversations, and she agreed to serve on the board. And she has been a model board member ever since.
So, Susan, what made you take the call to begin with? I mean, is mentoring just something you like to do, or did you think that this would just be another opportunity for you to expand? What was your reasoning?
Well, at the time, I had some space in my life that I could take that on, and passing on, any kind of positive influence to young girls. I know how important that is, or was in my life, and continues to be. When you tell people that yes, you can do this, and you stick with them on teaching them the program that Angela so brilliantly put together. I think I got more out of it than the young girls did. Honestly, I learned so much from them. They were so sharp, and the reason why I did it was I was drawn to it. There was just something about it that just, when I read that email, I need to do this. This is something that I need to do. I need to pay it forward. And once I met Angela, it was a done deal.
So, Angela, I know that Envisionly Grow encompasses middle school girls from all walks of life and all races and so forth. But I'm curious, Susan, whether or not the young ladies that you were mentoring in Newport News and Hampton, were they African American, and was that a concern for you?
Yes, they were all African American, and no, it was not a concern at all. It was actually quite the opposite. I was excited to have that connection, really just to show them that I'm going to just be blunt when I say this, but not all us white people are what you see on TV. And there's a lot of us out there that want all of us to succeed, no matter who we are. Especially, I am a little biased to young ladies because I was one at one time myself, and I do have a son. And I do see firsthand that there are advantages to being a boy, as opposed to some of these young girls and the expectations of these girls. And I don't want these girls to think, oh, I don't know if I can do that because fill in the blank. I want them to look at it as, why can't I? Sure, I can do this. I was driven if somebody said, yeah, I don't know that you can do this. And it's like, yeah, let me show you, I can do this. And, I was excited. And the parents that I met, they filled my soul. They really did. They were just, they wanted the best for their children, and it was so sincere and fulfilling to work with people like this, and it made me a better parent. They taught me a lot.
Well, Angela, I know that a lot of times when an African American starts something, people automatically assume that it is only for African Americans. Did you deliberately mix and match your mentors with your mentees, or did that just kind of happen organically?
This Barbara, great point. I just want to share some data with you that since 2016, we have serviced 2,217 girls.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Through the program. And so we target Title I schools. Why? Because our mission is to transform communities of poverty into communities of prosperity. So that does not mean that everyone is going to be African American. And so our target is not around race. Our target is around social economic factors. And we're specifically speaking of taking people who are in poverty and a mindset that naturally may go with that, because you can only be what you've seen, and help them see a difference. I will tell you, 71% of the girls that we've serviced have been African American. So the majority have been. So we attempt to show the girls a difference, period. So today, because of COVID, our mentoring is a little different, but it's actually even sweeter because we have girls in 48 states. We have paired girls who are on the East Coast who may be in Virginia, and their mentor is actually in California.
Oh, wow.
So they actually, a different perspective. Their network has expanded. Their mindsets have expanded. They're able to talk about things that we're just not talking about here in Virginia, for example. So where we can have a difference, it's been most people try to pair where you're similar because you'll understand my story. And I believe that ELG is an organization where there's spillover effect. The target is the girls, but what we're seeing is these mothers are going back to school and getting their high school diplomas.
Wow.
They're getting their college degrees because of what the girls are bringing hope. I'm finding that mentors who sign on, they're not just giving, they're getting. So they're learning from the experience. And so I am so committed to appreciating and enjoying the differences. It is absolutely delicious to just be able just to to soak in and digest the differences that we have and not feel intimidated by that, but feel empowered and smarter because now I know something that I would have never known if I would have just stuck with my family. I would have never known. Hey, Barbara, I would have never known you, for example. If I just stuck with what was like my comfort zone. As an entrepreneur, listen, I don't hang in the box. I hang completely outside of the box. And there are risks with that. There are people who will persecute you because you're okay with being outside of the box. But I have become so comfortable in my own skin. And I think it really helps you to understand that you cannot manage your life by compliment or by criticism. But you got to know that you know your purpose and then keep moving. And that's what we try to share with the girls.
Yeah. So George Floyd happened. I'm going to move us forward just a little bit because I want to get into the relationship between the two of you. So George Floyd happened. It turned our whole world upside down, everybody's world. And Lisa and I were talking, Lisa Godley, my producer, and I were talking about how many people reached out to us, particularly white people, to say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know. How do I make a friend? How do I navigate this? I'm curious as to what brought the two of you. I know that you were both on the board. You know, Angela, obviously, is your organization. Susan, you're a board member. But you two came together more on a personal level. How did that happen? Who wants to take that first?
Why don't you go, Susan?
Okay. Well, Angela was, I had been obviously thinking a lot about what was going on and after the George Floyd situation or murder, frankly, that was televised across the world. And Angela called me one day, just checking on all her board members at ELG. And I took a deep breath and I said, Angela, I want to throw something out to you. What if you and I start something? And at the time, we didn't know if it was going to be a vodcast or a podcast. We didn't know what we were doing, but that's what entrepreneurs do. You don't really know what you're doing. You just do.
You just do it.
So we go, and we're like, okay, who could help us? But what I said was, it's like, could we talk? Could we talk and show people that it's okay? Angela talks about drinking hot cocoa and the comfort of that. And I love that analogy of that's what we're doing. It doesn't mean that it's going to go down easily sometimes. It might be a little hot going down, but overall you're going to get a good feeling because we're communicating and we're talking. And there are a lot of white people that are like, what, we want to do something. What is it we do? What do we say? And it's a friend of mine gave me an article that was sent to her. It was written by a black man who said, you all really react when all this stuff goes on, but where are you to help us through just every day and to hear us? And, not just one of us represent the entire African American community. And that really sat with me. I thought, that's a really great point, but that's a point that we should be talking about together. And really, as I've told Angela, when we talk about who's our target market, who are we trying to get to? And my answer to that is the white people who need to start thinking, who really, and there's several that I know that they don't define themselves with any kind of racist thinking, but maybe we have a conversation and they reconsider some of what they've thought. There is some that I love, friends, but there is a bit of a arrogance and they're wanting to help. It's almost they need me to help them. And it's like, I don't know that they need you to help them. I think they need you to listen to them. So, and let's stop saying them. I really love what Angela just said about being comfortable in her skin. I'm starting to feel that way myself. And to be frank, I have felt very uncomfortable since I was a child in many situations, because it's like, I know in my heart this skin color is not who I am. And there are a lot of those that represent my skin color in a way that I just want to crawl under a rock. And now it's time to get out from under that rock and saying, this is who we are, and doesn't have to be hard. We can communicate. We can talk.
Susan, I want to ask you before I come to you, Angela. In the beginning, you said that you took a deep breath, and you asked Angela, can we talk? I'm curious about your thought process up to that point. I mean, what kinds of, I'm trying to get to the emotion of even making that decision, because for some people that is a really scary thing to do. Those who are in the receiving side kind of go, why is it so scary? I'm not a scary person,
Right.
But if you're not used to being in that space, that can be a very scary thing. So talk a little bit about your, did you pace and practice before you?
Well, I was pacing as I was on the phone, I'll tell you that. And my employees, I have a glass front office, so they know that if Susan's pacing up and down, something's going on that phone. And it shouldn't be hard. And Angela certainly she made it very, very easy. It was not her, it was me. And what it was is I wanted to be careful not to insult. I was like, how do I put this so that that I'm not putting the burden on her and saying, okay, this is on you. Because that's not what I was trying to say at all. It's on all of us to solve. It's not on one or the other. It's all of us, and how do we solve it? So finding the right words, not being an idiot when I was trying to get across the point of, that I wanted to communicate. And I think there was so many, and that's part of why I wanted to talk about this. There's so many of us on the white side that want to reach out, but are afraid that we're going to do it in the wrong way that may come across insulting or come across every other way than what we intend. So this podcast is actually helping me to learn. And just sitting there and listening to Angela, and somebody asked me the other day, they're like, you must be really good friends the way you all are talking. And I said, well, what's interesting is that's what you're watching. You're watching a friendship develop. Yeah. And I think that's what is so rich about this. It's two people. It's not about skin color. We both have different skin color, and but that's not what this is about. This is about experiences.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Have you been wanting to reach out to someone else of a different race from yourself, and you've been nervous about it? Or have you done it? Call us and tell us about your success story. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So Angela, when Susan approached you, were you surprised? Did you expect it? What was your reaction?
I won't say that I expected it. I had a series of calls. That was the day I selected 2 days that I was going to touch base with each of my board members. There's two things going on, COVID and the racial unrest. And so we have a board that's majority African American. Well, the reality is when this occurred, it rocked everyone. And it almost polarized individuals. And so it's really important that I just touch base with each of them. And I didn't have an expectation. I will tell you that when Susan began to speak, what I heard was compassion. What I heard was also a little bit of helplessness and what can I do? I want to do something. And so I received it and we moved on it. We are women of action for sure, so we're not going to just talk about it. And I just remember the day of the murder, May 25th, and it was a Monday, I believe. And I was in the middle of my regular busy, day. And I think that I was doing a daily post, and then that popped up on my phone. And just like I remember 9/11, exactly where I was en route in Maryland to my office. I remember exactly what I was doing at that moment. And my first thought went to my African-American boy. Mm. Because when he said, "Mama, I'm going to tell you," it like ripped everything in me. And so I didn't know who he was. The world didn't know who George Floyd was. All I knew was I could identify with Mama. And so I had to get my own emotions in check. But I have to tell you, I immediately went into, for some reason, Barbara, I don't know why I felt insulated for some reason. I felt before that, in that moment, I felt like I was in the midst of it. And I remember recently, I don't know, I heard Chris Rock speaking on with Charlemagne the God, and he was talking about how his children don't have to deal with some things because of, their economic status. And I'm just wondering, do people think that? Because what I know to be true is it doesn't matter how many zeros in your bank account, how many degrees you have. In this moment in time, it's on our doorstep. I can tell you, it hit me with my son. It hit me with my youngest daughter. So we are not immune to it. And the question is, what are we going to do with it? And so it was at that moment that, I determined, when we talk about we're a leader in a company, we're a leader in the community, now is the time for us to show leadership. And we show it in different ways. And so the way I decided to show it was to communicate and to be okay, to be vulnerable, for people to ask me questions. I don't speak for every African American. And let me tell you, we don't even speak the same. So we are all in agreement on everything. But what I can offer you is I have decided I'm not going to be angry about your question. I've decided that I'm not going to take offense because you only can bring what you know. What I've decided is, if you want to ask me a question, ask me a question. So in that moment with Susan asking, I'd already decided that I have to present myself and speak to my company, because it is an African-American woman-owned company. And so I can't ignore it, and I want to speak and open it up so others feel comfortable speaking about it, and on the board, open it up that we can speak about it.
Okay, hang on just one second. If you're just joining us, we're talking about creating authentic relationships across racial lines with Dr. Angela Reddix, CEO of ARDX and Executive Director of Envision Lead Grow, and Susan Pilato, Principal with PC&A Business Environment and Board Member of ELG. And I guess you're the owner of or the creator of Envision Lead Grow, Angela. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. I want to play a clip from your podcast, and it's called The Vine Experience, and we're going to talk about the title and about it on the other side. Let's listen.
We're all in some way connected. Our lives and our life intertwine in more ways than we realize. The Vine Experience is all about connecting and growing in our mindset.
We need to talk about reality. Get out of our silos, listen to others, their reality, and make it a better place.
Two successful businesswomen coming together, one black, one white, sharing their similarities and their differences, joining forces to talk and to listen, discussing what some may call uncomfortable topics, but subjects that are having a significant impact in our lives today. When you're in an uncomfortable position, you have an opportunity to grow, to change, to open up to possibilities.
The more we talk and we have conversation and we recognize our experiences are woven together, it's so much more comfortable. We can sit back, we can just let our hair down, we can just enjoy each other for the human factor.
We want to have those uncomfortable conversations, to get past the awkwardness, acknowledge each other's truths, and find that common ground, that connection. You have to compromise and listen to receive. Follow the vine and see where it leads. Join us on our journey.
Susan, I'm watching your face as you were listening. It's still pretty emotional for you.
Yes, it is. The fact that, let me just say, Dr. Angela is a great role model to us all, not just these little girls, but to all of us. Her capacity to receive and what she received from me with such compassion, with such understanding was remarkable to me. And so just listening to her with what you just played, every time I hear, I never hear it enough. It fills my soul.
Angela, why do you call it divine experience?
So it really is about, we start in our own spaces. And the more we talk, the more we find that we have things in common. And so I see the vine getting stronger and stronger as it grows up and we learn more about each other. We can push each other to new heights. And so that feels like a vine to me. And then this is not a rehearsed session. We don't even have questions that we're going to ask each other. It is truly, you are walking along with us in this experience. So you're experiencing the blossoming of a relationship that is created intentionally for the purpose of showing others how to have uncomfortable conversations and how to just appreciate the strength we bring to each other when we decide that we're going to grow together.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We'd love to hear from you and your experiences with trying to create new relationships in this time of reckoning for our country. Sharice joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Sharice. You're on the air.
Hello, Barbara, and thank you very much for accepting my call, as you have done so in the past. I would first like to say to these two ladies, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't say so many thank yous. It is so blessed to have them come together and join this group. I'm a white lady. I've been accepted as a ally with many friends, and I've been, as a defense attorney, have been fighting against police abuse in our own cities in the Hampton Roads area for quite some time. We even got designated by some of the black gentlemen in custody in the Norfolk City Jail as the White Tornado. So, and one thing I think important that, and Dr. Angela, I didn't catch your last name. I prefer to address people by last name, so I'm going to apologize up front for calling you Dr. Angela.
No problem.
When you say, I am going to hear the question and keep my ears open, is what we all need to do, because I didn't grow up in this area. I grew up in the northeastern part of Oklahoma, and the only prejudices, I guess I would say, or biases I was introduced to were against the indigenous people of this country in that area. So I had learned some hard lessons when I was in the Army, and actually was, I won't go into that story, it's too long. I just want to say thank you. We all need to, well, let's listen and let's try to understand if the person is asking questions or saying things out of an unconscious bias or just out of sheer ignorance because they haven't been basically had those exposed, thank you, or those experiences. And anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Sharice, thanks so much for the call. Ladies. We appreciate the phone call. You ladies want to respond? Angela, you want to respond to her?
Yes, unconscious bias. Boy, that's the whole concept. That's the word that we honestly all have. So we all have those, and we have to think about it. We have to think about how it impacts other people. But I also think that someone has to help you see it, because if you don't even recognize it, then how can you do anything about it? So, thank you for all that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Susan, and I'm curious as to whether or not, well, first of all, let me say this. I've listened to the podcast. I've had the privilege of listening to the 2 podcasts that you guys have produced thus far, and 3 actually. But I laughed out loud, Susan, when you were talking about your dad and dating.
Yeah.
And Angela, I felt you when you were talking about not fitting in with the white students or the black students at Cox High School, and then your experience about picking a school. And I thought about myself, because I also was in a predominantly white high school and was determined to go to an HBCU, and actually did fine. But I was always Miss Black Power all the way through. So, but my point being, your stories are so relatable. And I think if we could get people to understand that our stories are what connect us, and that we're not that far apart, if we can listen to our stories. Angela, I'll get your reaction first.
I think one of the greatest gifts, we're talking about nonprofits, and when we talk to board members, we want their time, we want their treasures, we want their talent. I really want that 4th T, and that's their truth. I believe our stories, they're healing. There is not one story out there that you will find that someone else can't relate to. Someone in this world can relate to your story. And so often we're in our own heads thinking that we're the only one and we're something's wrong with us. The reality is, if we could just be vulnerable and just be okay telling our stories, I believe that's worth more than money, because you can't pay for mental health. Yeah. You can pay to go to a counselor, but you can't pay. There's nothing more valuable than mental health. My grandmother used to say, Angie, as long as you have your right mind and you have your health, you can accomplish anything. And so I tell you, when we tell our truth, number one is liberating. Once you get that thing out and no one can hold anything over you, that's a liberating thing. But secondly, it creates the common ground that we're all searching for.
Mm-hmm. Susan, was it easy for you to just tell your truth, your stories? Was that also a part of the learning process of the new relationship that you guys are forging?
Well, absolutely, because I think, when you tell your story, you eliminate the fear. You eliminate the fear of being alone, because once it's out there, you do find, as Dr. Angela said, that we're connected, and there are others out there. And I've got a great example of that. My mother passed when I was 13 of breast cancer, and for years I had in my head I was supposed to be over this. What was wrong with me? How come at age 20 I was still sad about things, and it would be different emotions? And someone handed me a book called Motherless Daughters, and I can tell you that when I read through that book, my mental health elevated to a level that I don't think I've ever had since Mom had been gone. And it was simply because I read that I was not alone, that there were other stories that were just like mine, and I was okay, that I was going to be okay, and that there was nothing wrong with me, because I can't tell you, for years, I really thought something was wrong with me. And then sharing other people, being brave enough to share their story, cured me of feeling alone.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Sherry joins us from Yorktown. Hi, Sherry. You're on the air.
Hi there. How are you today?
Doing great.
Beautiful. Well, my story has to deal with the neighborhood where I live, being in my mid-70s and having new families coming in and out of the neighborhood. Gardening, as I do almost every day, two little gals came down and wanted to talk with me and see what I was doing and help out. And let me say this, that I call myself linen color, and I call them cocoa color, because none of us, with my art background, none of us are black or white. And every time I hear it, it's like nails on the chalkboard, because that's not really the issue. Anyway, so I befriended these little gals, and because I'm now a retired registered dietitian, I decided that they are very interesting smart little gals, and 5 and 7, and I began through mothers' acceptance to show them how to cook on their level, how to do pizza from scratch in a healthful way, how to, last evening we happened to do lasagna roll-ups that had baby spinach inside with sauce and cheese over and baked in the oven, and they just got the biggest kick out of this, and especially Mama. And their mother is an Army soldier. I happen to have been an Army captain during Vietnam era back when, so we have a lot in common. And I don't see color as the skin as the definitive virtue of who a person is. All we all have to do is to look into each other's eyes deeply and see the life and the essence of the individual.
Okay.
Well, it happened way back when I was in my initial internship at Walter Reed in Washington. I had to observe major surgery. And when the time came and I was up a little stool watching what the doctors were doing, I looked into the cavity of this woman, and I thought to myself, at 22 years of age, what's the big whoop? We're all the same color inside.
Amen. Sherry, we're going to have to cut it short, because I want to make sure that we have enough time to get a response to what you've said. You've brought up a lot of points for us. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. And I mean, she makes a good point, because we all bleed red, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to, applaud Sherry. Was it Sherry?
Sherry, yes.
I think, the point I take away from that discussion is we have to use whatever talent we have, whatever we can do to make a connection. And so what I heard was connection in that discussion. So thank you.
And the kids, if we listen to our children, sometimes they will help guide us. Let's talk to Robin in Newport News. Hi, Robin. You're on the air.
Hi. This is Robin. I was born and raised in the North in Connecticut. I was the first Black girl to apply and be accepted at the Low Haywood Preparatory School for Girls. My family was the first Black family to move onto our block, which was a suburb of Stamford. My mother understood what was going on with the education in other parts of the country, and she knew if we moved to a neighborhood that was predominantly white, that in public school we would get a better education. And I continued to be the only, the first, the whatever. I decided to become a professional graphic designer. I went to Pratt Institute. When I went into graphic design in the early 70s, it was a white Jewish male dominated industry. So there were a lot of things that I had to face. I moved here in 1989.
Hey, Robin, we got less than 5 minutes left in the show, so can you get to the question or the point? Yes. Thanks.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What I have observed in the Tidewater area is that the stereotypical racist attitudes are deeply entrenched in Black people and in white people, and it is very difficult to negotiate relationships for me with either. And I love what these two ladies are doing, and I had really hoped there would be more of a dialogue and conversation when we had the first African-American president of the United States, and that didn't happen. So thank you for taking my call.
Sure, no problem, Robin. Thank you. Ladies, we got about 3 minutes left, so respond to Robin, and then I want to ask you a follow-up question. So, Susan, I'll start with you this time.
Well, I agree with her that there wasn't enough conversation that continued with having President Obama. We thought that was going to, I did anyway, that was going to open so many avenues. And what has happened since is has been more than disappointing. And so that's a lot of the reason why we're doing what we're doing. We've got to be part of the solution and stop being part of the problem.
Angela?
As Robin was speaking, I was thinking about Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Yes. She speaks about the first, only, and different FOD. And so as you were speaking, I can only imagine the burden. While it's great to have those opportunities, the burden of being the first, the only, and the different, and how that impacts the way you see life going forward. So, yes, thank you for sharing.
So one last thing, I'd like each of you to give one piece of advice to people out there listening to you now who are struggling with how to start to have these authentic conversations and authentic relationships. And Susan, I'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you. I think the first thing to do is ask for the story. Everyone's got one. Find out what that story is and listen. Be willing to really listen with all your heart.
Okay. That is Susan Pilato. She is principal with PC&A Business Environment and a board member of ELG. Thank you, Susan, so much. Angela, you got the last 30 seconds.
I first say acknowledge. Racism is real. It exists. It is ugly. It is painful. We have to acknowledge that there are a lot of people in pain and that this is not a light conversation. And then once we acknowledge that, figure out what we as individuals can do. What can we do to shift a behavior and to shift a mindset? Okay.
Angela Reddix, who is CEO of ARDX and also the founder of Envision, Lead, and Grow. Ladies, thank you so very much. Real quickly, where can people get the podcast?
On every podcast
anywhere
outlet. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, I believe it's called.
Anywhere you can find your podcast.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so very much, ladies, for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Claude McKnight of the group Take 6, and you're listening to Another View.
Thank you and welcome back. There are very few Virginia schools named after an African American, and the number of those buildings dedicated to Black women is even smaller. But right here in Hampton Roads on Burns Drive in Newport News sits Watkins Early Childhood Center, named after educator and activist Dorothy Watkins. Our Lisa Godley takes a look at her life and legacy.
Dorothy Rose Watkins was born in 1909. The same year, William Howard Taft was inaugurated as the 27th President of the United States.
We still ought to have set before us the definite plans to bring on complete equality of opportunity and to abolish hardship and evil for humanity. We listened for them in vain.
Dorothy moved to the peninsula when she was 24 years old and worked as a teacher at Booker T. Washington Elementary School for 9 years. She witnessed glaring disparities, not only in what her students experienced, like poor quality textbooks, insufficient supplies, and access to transportation, but major disparities in pay. Across the state, Black teachers earned about $558 annually, while their white counterparts made $864 a year. Black educators across the state had been petitioning their boards for equal pay since 1901. Their cries fell on deaf ears. Then there was a break. Teachers in Norfolk won a court case on appeal, and the city began phasing in pay parity. This gave the Newport News Negro Teachers Association reason to once again petition their board. When the board said no, Dorothy had had enough, and on February 18, 1942, she sued the superintendent and the school board and won.
A long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
It would be another 2 years before the school board would comply with the court's decision. But this was a major victory for Black teachers in Newport News and a major step in the fight for pay equity across the South. Yolander Hilton first learned about Dorothy Watkins' activism after taking a job at the school named in Dorothy's honor. She describes her this way.
This woman, she has courage like a lion. She was a social activist, a woman who believes that all children can learn, and one who you can count on for integrity and treat everyone equally.
Like most activists fighting change in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, Dorothy's determination to bring about change came with a cost. 6 months after the ruling, the school board fired Dorothy and 5 other leaders of the Newport News Negro Teachers Association. She would sue for reinstatement, but the courts would uphold the board's decision.
Virginia did not want you to have unions of any sort to gather in any way because the employer is always right and they can fire you.
But it would be another 30 years before this valiant educator and activist would be recognized for her efforts to bring about pay equity. In 1974, Dorothy Watkins was appointed to the Newport News School Board, where she would serve students, teachers, and the citizens of Newport News until her retirement in 1974, the year she died.
People who serve and don't expect anything in return, they're just doing the right thing. And to me, that makes her outstanding.
Newport News opened Dorothy R. Watkins Elementary School in 1972, and the school closed in 2007. But it was later reopened as Watkins Early Childhood Center, and today serves more than 500 preschool students. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And one thing I love about Another View, we will tell you about history and what is going on in our state and in our Commonwealth and in our country. Thank you so much for spending an hour of your life with us today. I hope our conversation has inspired you to create an authentic relationship with someone of a different race. If listening to the show again will help, please visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. And please sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. You can find us on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at Barbara Ham Lee. Next week on Another View, think COVID is not as serious as medical experts say? Wait till you hear the story of our guest next week. It is a cautionary tale for all of us. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. Just a reminder, if you need help with housing, call the Housing Crisis Hotline at 757-587-4202 and get the help that you need. Stay vigilant, wash your hands, stay 6 feet or more apart, wear your mask, and join me, Barbara Ham Lee, next Thursday at noon for Another View.